All right, welcome back to the Xano521 podcast. My name is Mitch McKinney, here with our owner, Mr. Jay Bryant. Jay, welcome back. Glad to have you. At Xano521, we transform the spaces where you live, work, and play. We serve all of Central Florida. We do work all the way in Orlando up to St. Augustine. So wherever you live, we can come to you and we can beautify your space. We're grateful that you're with us. Before we jump in today's episode, we just ask that you please just quickly like or subscribe to this channel on YouTube or on whichever platform you're tuning in with. Your support means the world to us. All right, Jay, you said you served in the military. Thank you for your service. You're a veteran. Which branch?
Army.
Army. Do you have a message for the other branches?
Go Army. No, I love all the branches, you know. I mean, there's nothing like being pinned down and watching the Marines come in and you know, help you out with the close air support. You know, all the branches we serve. But we do like to rib each other and give each other a hard time. So, especially our customers who serve in other branches. It's fun.
Regardless of the branch, we appreciate you. Thank you for your service. Okay, today we're going to get a little bit more technical than the conversations that we've had in the past. We got our installer gear on today. And so, you know, up to this point, we've talked about factors to consider when it comes choosing a company. We've talked about the different types of companies. Last episode, we talked about cost. Make sure that you check those out if you didn't see those. Today, I want us to talk about preparation and repair. So let's say that I've got a project, a driveway, a garage, a pool deck, and it needs some work. It needs some TLC. It started out well, but I got cracks, and it's just ugly. What can I do? How much preparation? What kind of preparation? How much can a company like Xano521? How much can we repair? What can we not do? Hoping that you can kind of help with some of those questions today. So where do you want to start? Preparation or repairs?
Let's talk about preparation.
Okay, so let's talk about preparation. So you're saying that, you haven't said it yet, but I think you're going to say, that every surface that's going to have a concrete coating on it should be prepped? Is that true?
Must be prepped.
Okay, why is that the case?
Because you're getting ready to put a liquid surface onto this concrete, and you want that liquid surface to bond and stay on that concrete. You don't want it to come up, you want it to last. So in order to do that properly, you have to prep that surface. Concrete, when it's poured, it's called a cream. They float the concrete out and they finish the top. They get the aggregate down below and they finish, and it's got a cream. And you know, you love when I get real technical, but there's a thing we call surface tension at the top. In other words, they get it where the pores are tighter on the top, and you can't get chemical into that pore. So we have to go and we call it profiling. We're just going to take that cream and just open it up just enough so that our chemicals can go in there. If you don't do that, your chemicals, it's just like trying to bond paint to something like this. It just won't work. It'll just peel off after a little bit.
We've talked about the root system that's created with that base coat. That's what you're talking about, right? So when you prep it, it's opening up those pores so that product, whatever it is, has the opportunity to really bond and lock in so that it doesn't eventually fail and pull out. So so good heads up there. So if we're considering a concrete coatings project, we definitely need to have the surface prepped. Now, from what I know, different companies prep the surfaces in different ways. Some being we don't do any prep at all. So can you kind of walk us through the different options when it comes to
Sure. So a lot of companies will want to come in and do what we call an acid wash, because acid will eat into the concrete. It will kind of create more peaks and valleys for something to bond to. But it's just not enough. It really. And then you think about it. Once they pour that acid down, then they got to wash it all out. It's usually muriatic acid. Then they got to wash it out. That goes into your driveway, it goes down into the system, your drain system. You don't want to get caught doing that. If somebody was to catch you doing that, there might be a little bit of a problem. So, but it just doesn't work to start with. So we would want to use something that's actually going to grind that surface down, open the pores up. And even before that, if you have an existing system, you got to get it off. If you have stains and oils and stuff, you got to get past that into good concrete, because that's not going to mix well with your products.
On that acid etching, like when they put it down, because I'm not familiar, I've never been part of that process. Like, how do you know if it's been, you put it down, but how do you know if it's properly done what it's supposed to do?
You don't.
Okay.
You just assume you put the acid on it that it's actually prepped it properly.
Okay. Okay. So that's an option. You've talked about grinding. What other options are there when it comes to prep?
Well, there's bead blasting. It's something that you might see some companies do, and it's a very effective way to get a proper C2, C3 profile is what we call it, where you open up the pores. It is a little bit messier because using beads to blast into it. Now, if you have a surface that's salt rock finished, in other words, got a lot of holes in it, and people do that by design, a lot of times you'll have to use a bead blaster because your profile and planetary grinder won't get down to those holes. So bead blasting is a good option. You might see some people use that. But apart from those three, you know, acid, which we would never recommend or suggest, but a planetary grinder of some sort or bead blasting are the only two best options for
Which
prepping.
option do we use?
Planetary grinding typically.
Okay. And so walk us a little bit through that. So we have a big grinder.
Big one.
We call
850 pounds.
850 pounds. And what's underneath it that's actually doing the prep work for us?
So all of our grinders have three different heads that spin, and then they rotate the opposite direction. So it's what we call a planetary grinder. And then in the bottom of those heads, we have diamond tooling at the bottom that actually cuts the concrete.
Yeah. And if I'm right, we need to use different diamonds for different hardnesses of surface, right?
So we use different diamonds for removals, whether it's like a cool decking on a pool deck. We have to take off something like that. We have diamonds specifically for that. We get diamonds for removing just paints, diamonds for different hardnesses of concrete, and that ranges all the way up to really hard to really soft. And then we have diamonds for removing glue and stuff like that if we have to take carpet up.
So would you say that's probably the best option when it comes to prep?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I don't disagree, but doesn't that make like a huge mess? Like anytime I've grinded anything, isn't it like just kicking stuff up everywhere?
It kicks a little up, but guess what? A good company is going to use a good vacuum system that's going to suck up 90-95% of all that dust. Now when I say 90-95%, when you see one of our projects, you'll see guys carrying out big bags of concrete dust. 5% of that is still a fair bit of dust. So we like to tell people, be prepared to have your area get dusty. It's going to get a little dusty.
Sure.
And then around the edges where that big grinder doesn't get, we use hand grinders.
Okay.
And we have vacuums on those as well.
Yep.
But as you hit the edge of a surface, that vacuum doesn't really work as well, so it'll get a puff of dust.
Yeah.
But we're still collecting most of that dust.
We're collecting a lot of it, and then there's different ways we can tape off different areas if you're concerned about something like that. Okay. So let's say that, I know the prep system that I want, and I have Xano521 come out, and it's install day, right? Talk to me about what's the first step in that preparation process. Like, what does that look like for the first, 30 minutes, hour or so?
So the first thing that our guys will do is they're going to come out and meet with the customer, and they're going to review the scope, and make sure we got the right color. We're going to be coating the right area.
Important.
Important. You wouldn't want to get a knee replacement. The doctor does the wrong knee, right? That would be a terrible thing. We wouldn't want to coat the wrong area.
Right.
So we just confirm the scope, and then the guy's going to go in and they're going to recheck the hardness.
Yes.
Okay.
With the picks.
With the picks. And then we're also going to do a moisture test, and we're going to test multiple areas to make sure that the moisture content is where it needs to be. Usually we know ahead of time if there's going to be a moisture issue, but we always double check.
Right.
Because sometimes from the time that you agree to do the job and the time we install, it could be several days to weeks. So things can change. You have a lot of rain, maybe have some issues. So we always double check.
And also when we take off that top layer, right?
Yes.
There's a possibility that it's coming up from there too, right?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about moisture. We're going to talk more about that in an upcoming episode. But the hardness test. Can you just talk people through what does that mean? Pick test.
If I knew you were going to ask that question, I would have brought one. We could actually show the guys. So a pick test is just it's multiple little tips on these, like a pencil almost. And we have different hardness of those tips, and we just scratch the concrete. And once it scratches, we read the number on that, and it tells us the hardness.
Right.
And with that, we know what diming segment to put on the grinder.
Yeah.
From there.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so we do the tests again, and then we grind.
We start grinding. Yep.
So and then we get the surface ground, and then comes the repairs.
Then we get the repairs going.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So let's just say hypothetically, I've got a garage and it's a mess. It's got all kinds of issues. It's not only ugly, but there's some structural things, there's some cracks, there's some pitting. A concrete coatings company like ours, what can we repair right? Because we're not pouring concrete. We're not doing anything structurally or foundationally, but we can do some repairs. Can you talk through the audience about kind of what we can and what we can't do?
Yeah, sure. So cracks are ugly. We all know they're ugly. Typically, cracks are easy to fix for us. We have a blade that we just go and we chase those cracks out. We open them up. We have a 2-part mender that is amazing. It cures to 4,000 to 6,000 psi depending on temperature, humidity, and whatnot. But it's harder than typical concrete. We pour that in there, it hardens up, and then we grind that flush.
Right.
Those are easy. Pitting, pretty easy. If you have an old bolt where they had something mounted, we can grind those out and fix those things. Chips in the edge of your concrete, a lot of times we'll see it on the face of a garage, the entrance, that what we call the apron part. There's chips and chunks. We can cut those and repair them and make those look nice and rounded and pretty. Where we end up with a bit of an issue sometimes is if you have concrete where there's deviation in the elevation.
Where it's moved.
Right, it's moved a little bit. Now those we can repair. It's going to be a bit more work. You're going to have a little bit of a slope.
Right, we can't get it perfectly.
We're not going to get it perfect. So just managing expectations so if people understand, like when you look at a repaired floor like that, you might see a wave. You usually see waves in concrete anyway, right? I mean, nothing's perfectly poured, but we're going to get those right. Now the problem is when we have structural issues. Garage floors are typically a floating slab, so they go up to a footer or stem wall, but they're not footered themselves.
Right.
So they can shift and move, and concrete's always expanding and contracting anyway. So if we have an area that's sunk in, that we can't fix. Right. That's going to be maybe call somebody that can come jack that up and try to fill it in. That's another whole topic. Driveways, pool decks, driveways, again, floating slab. There's no footers in a driveway. So when you have a driveway sitting there, it's going to shift, it's going to move. There's all kinds of issues that can happen in driveways. So that's why we see a lot of cracks. That's why a lot of people call us.
Right. Yeah.
It's because it just looks bad. We know cracks are going to form there. A lot of things will cause these things. Tree roots growing under your, and we can't fix that. You take your tree down, but usually that pulls the concrete up, and that's got to be dealt with another way. Water infiltration coming in, maybe erosion under there. Big trucks on 4 or 5 inches of concrete can crack it. Most of those things we can tidy up and pretty up, but they might come back if there's a substrate issue.
Right.
What we tell our customers is if you have a corner of your corner of your driveway, for example, we see this often. That corner breaks off, and the driveway kind of makes a triangle,
like a dog
as it goes out. And we call it a dog ear. It breaks off. That's just a little floating piece of concrete out there, and they could be pretty big. They can be a small little area, but those areas usually we recommend we cut those out and have that area repoured, pin it back into the original. That way it's going to last.
I mean, it makes sense. You don't initially think that concrete is moving, but like as the ground moves, it's going to move with it. And then concrete is expanding and contracting, and so there's constant movement. That's why you have control joints and expansion joints. And so there are some things that we can repair, like pitting. Can you talk someone through, like, how would you define pitting?
Pitting is just any small deviation in the surface of the concrete, just little holes, little divots. Some is when they pour the concrete, some aggregate stayed at the top and a piece of stone popped out. Sometimes somebody drops a tool on their concrete, chips it out. So there's all kinds of variations of what causes pitting, but it's any type of little hole that's in there.
That we
that's
can
easy.
Totally fix that. For most cracks, surface cracks, we can fix those. And you talked about how we use a grinder. Those grinders have a V blade on it, right? For a reason.
We have 2 different types. One is a V blade and one's what we call a slip blade. So it depends on the type of crack. So we would use those, but we want to open that up. And when we're doing that, we're actually profiling the sides of the concrete on the inside.
So that filler, that mender.
So that mender could soak in.
Stick to both sides of it.
And stick in there.
Okay. So those issues we can repair. Things that are structural, foundational, you need someone to come out, a professional to come out and repair those. We can fix them, but there's probably a good chance
it's probably going to come back. And even the ones we fix, it's possible it can come back. I mean, cracks are just concrete shifting and moving all the time. We're putting a thin, multi-layered system on there. It's not going to actually hold your concrete together. But it should last. It should last a while.
If you have one of our estimators come out and look at your project, and that's part of what we're evaluating is the condition of the concrete. If there's issues, we're going to be upfront with you. It doesn't do us any good to say we're going to fix something knowing that it's going to come back, right? And so we're upfront and honest with you about what we can and what we can't do. If there's been many times when we've come out and we've said, hey, listen, we'd love to do this project for you, but for this to be the best outcome possible, you really need to come out, have someone come out and either remove the tree roots or re-pour this section.
Right.
Then we can come out, we can make it all look uniform, look beautiful. But just know from our perspective, we're gonna make sure that we're upfront and honest with you on the front end.
Yeah, they're spending a lot of money on this. Let's get it right.
And nobody wants surprises on the back end.
Yeah.
No. So
I don't.
Okay. Anything else? Repairs or prep? I think we did a pretty good job.
Well, I know I did. I'm not sure about you, Mitch, but I did a great job.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. Thanks again for the info. Let's say that someone has questions or someone does want us to come out and look at a project. What's the best way for them to get in touch with us?
Hey, they can just get on our website, Xano521.com. That's Xano521.com.
Yep.
And all the information that we're putting out to you today is on our website. All of our jobs, all of our previous jobs. You can actually sort by the type of area and the type of color on there to see if you see another project similar to the one maybe you're looking at doing. But you can get all that information on our website.
Yep. Xano, Xano521. Next time, in our next episode, we're going to talk about durability. We're going to talk about maintenance. Which system holds up best, the best ways and the worst ways to maintain and keep your new surfaces beautiful. So that's what's upcoming. Make sure you tune in next time to the Xano521 podcast. See you then.